Chapter 7, Real Roadblocks. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Marie Curie. Past failures, properly understood, are not roadblocks, but aids to our eventual success. Nevertheless, the fear of failure has stopped countless dreamers from reaching for their goals. Fear of failure unmasked. I have interviewed thousands of individuals at the moment. They are weighing the potential risk and benefits of starting a new business. I have found that the concerns people most commonly express at the onset, I can't afford it and I don't have the time, generally functions as smoke screens. Each time I hear one of these responses, I think, really? What what you're doing now has you broke and too busy to create the life of your dreams. How's that working for you? It seems like these two conditions provide perfect incentives to say yes to opportunity. Of course, I don't actually express these observations out loud. People have to realize these things for themselves. Nevertheless, in 25 years and thousands of interviews, I have never met anyone who is really stuck by a lack of money or time. People get around limitations of time and money in all kinds of creative ways. I know a guy who sold his motorcycle to start a business so he could spend more time with his family. I knew he loved that motorcycle, so I asked him why he sold it. He said, I love my family more. A bit of probing often reveals that these excuses of no money or time hide an underlying force that most people balk at facing directly: fear of failure. Most people who say that they dream of a better life and wish they could find a real opportunity, but the paralyzing fear failure stops countless dreamers in their tracks. Over time, I have discovered the fear of failure, in turn, conceals an even deeper concern for persevering one's reputation. The primary roadblock that stops people from going into business for themselves arises from a misplaced value of keeping up appearances. If you've ever had a sense that a fear of failure keeps you from proceeding toward your dreams, please consider that you may not be afraid of failure as such. Perhaps you're afraid of looking like a loser to your friends and family. You're afraid of not fitting in. Let's examine that. When you learned to ride a bike, how many times did you fail? No matter how many times you scraped and bruised yourself falling off, you kept getting back on. Why was it okay to fail and keep going then, but not in business? Because not learning to ride a bike would make you an outcast. All your friends would be riding past you and laughing as you walked to school. It's all about conformity. And what matters most is what your peer groups expects. Here's another example. When you finish second grade, you're expected to go on to third grade. If it looks like it might not happen, you get encouragement, special attention, maybe some discipline or tutoring. But failure is not an option. Why? It's simply because in your community, people are expected to go from second grade to third grade. So now you're in the 10th grade. Do you go on to the 11th grade? That depends. Do most of the people in your community finish high school? If most of the people finish, then that's what's expected of you. This confirms every parent's intuition. You become just like the people you hang around. And let's face it, the majority of your friends and family are not likely to risk their reputations to start their own business. The pull of conformity is stronger than gravity. So you have to choose either to purpose your dream or to fit in with the crowd. Sadly, most people pursue your dream to fit into the crowd. And sadly, most people would rather spend the rest of their days complaining that they lack the time or money to enjoy life than do anything about it. If that means defying their peers' expectations, what would people think? What will people think of you if you fail in business? Frankly, you probably wouldn't care what people think about you if you realize just how seldom they do. Fear and faith face off. While fear stops many people in their tracks, paradoxically, fear can also get us moving. Fear of loss can be a powerful motivator. The prospect of all kinds of loss, of possessions, relationships, social status, opportunity, or love, can thrust us into action with an alarming sense of urgency. Baby boomers, frightened by the disappearance of their pensions and the inadequacy of their life savings for retirement, are scrambling to find new sources of income. Terrified at the prospect of losing their houses and lifestyle, they are seeking new employment opportunities and starting businesses in record numbers. Thus, fear of loss, closely related to fear of failure, also masked an underlying concern for protecting one's reputation. Both kinds of fear seek to preserve our status quo. Fear operates like a thermostat, trying to maintain a constant comfort level in our environment. If something about our environment changes, fear kicks in and either tries to avoid the change or to return things to the way they were. In this way, fear can be a powerful force. Though fear may be the predominant force in most people's lives, faith can be even more powerful in the lives of those who practice and develop it. Faith generally seeks to overturn the status quo that fear seeks to preserve. Faith seeks to bring something new into being. The writer of the New Testament book, the letter to the Hebrews, wrote, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Hebrews 11:1. Elsewhere in the Christian Bible, the patriarch Abraham receives praise for modeling his faith after God himself, who calls those things which do not exist as though they did. Romans 4:17. That is how I think of faith, holding a confident mental picture of that which I desire and speaking of it as if it were complete until it manifested for all to see. It fascinates me that many people who ridicule acts of faith as some kind of fantasy or pipe dream view fears as grounded in reality or as an expression of being practical and realistic. They fail to realize that both faith and fear are acts of human imagination. Each looks into the future and pictures how it might turn out. Fear envisions a future with an undesirable outcome, and faith foresees an happy ending. Neither is real, both are simply points of views. Ego creates limits. Beware of the little voice that may be saying that without fear you will lose all motivation. This is your ego speaking, trying desperately to keep all the familiar pieces in place. The ego can't thrive without fear, but you can flourish by breaking free from the bonds of fear and ego. All people encounter fears. On some level, we all want to keep life as it is. Just as human beings universally experience fear, all people who achieve great dreams have overcome fear universally through acts of faith. Fear constrains us to operate within the limits of our known strengths and weaknesses. Faith reaches beyond our ego and opens us to untapped resources and abilities. For me, ego means edging God out. As long as you've got all the answers and rely on your own strength, there's no room for miracles. Your quantum leap forward begins by taking a step back and humbling yourself. Only then can you learn what it means to ask, seek, and knock. I see many boomers starting business out of fear of losing their familiar lifestyle. But I also encounter boomers who don't have to worry about personal finances, and yet they are also interested in business opportunities. Many of these are creating new enterprises out of a desire to make an impact in the world. They've had successful careers, they've created their nest eggs, yet they desire to leave more of a legacy. This is all good. The greatest motivator, greater than the fear of loss, comes from a deep sense of purpose. Here's the interesting thing. These people often face a similar struggle with their egos as they seek to succeed in a new business. They see my success and they don't really understand it. Then, before they've taken the time to study my system and philosophy, they start improving on it based on their own past successes, strengths, and experience. Please don't conclude that I think my system has no room for improvements. It has continued to evolve for 25 years and will continue to do so with the insights and help of many of the people who have mastered it. Here's what happens when people try to improve the system before learning it. Unwittingly, driven by ego, individuals enhance my system in some way that inevitably features some quality that has proven successful for them in another line of work. For example, they rewrite my basic presentation to update and streamline it and give it more sophistication and polish. But they failed to recognize that my system works extremely well as it is. I don't take their criticism personally. Often these are the same people who ridicule other very successful marketing campaigns. Have you seen the Snuggie commercial? People who spoofed it and made it the butt of many jokes, they ridicule the commercial as stupid and amateurish. Yet with that dumb commercial, the Snuggie inventor has sold over 25 million of those silly plush bathrobes. You think that guy's feelings are hurt knowing that people stand around the water cooler talking about his ridiculous idea? He's crying all the way to the bank. People who want to change my system may mean well, but they fail to understand that my business operates on a principle of duplication that is psychologically delicate. If people see what looks like a polished presentation, they think, I'll never be able to do that. And they don't look any further. The pattern of duplication never starts. Thus, strengths driven by ego become weaknesses. I can't tell you the number of promising new associates in my business who dive in with gusto and fall on their faces. When I investigate what they are doing, inevitably they have tweaked some part of the system to fit their personal style, but their personal style will not duplicate, so the system fails to work. Some of these individuals humble themselves and seek my advice, as I sought Mr. Gould's when I failed at the onset. Others sadly give up. They chalk it up to personal shortcomings or a weakness in my business system. They say, I'll give it a try, but they really didn't. These miscalculations by ego, overconfidence, and lack of confidence produce the two major pitfalls that lead to failure in business. The one who lacks confidence feels he must master everything that can be known about his business in order to move forward. So he takes courses, reads books, and never stops preparing to begin, but never begins. The overconfident person fails to learn from those who have gone before, who make the mistakes and have achieved success. He may eventually reinvent the wheel, but more likely he will recreate all their mistakes, their traumas, and failures and become discouraged. How does one resolve this problem of too much or too little confidence? The secret weapon that cuts through this Gordian knot involves finding a well-documented mentor and following his or her proven system faithfully. As Peter Drucker put it, the system is the solution. Or, as I often say, people don't duplicate, systems duplicate. Working with a proven mentor and a good system allows a new person to get out of the way. As my mentor advised me, and to find people who already want what you have and point them to where they can get what they want. This enables a beginner to achieve results with surprising speed. I always encourage people to treat their first months and years in business as going to school, but the system allows them to earn as they learn. I'll describe my specific implementation of the strategy in the next section. Dealing powerfully with doubt. Occasionally, someone would come to me and say, with all apparent humility, I just don't have the faith for this. They perceive faith as the absence of doubts and fears. What you may view as a lack of faith may actually arise from ineffectiveness in dealing with your doubts. Doubts are thoughts rooted in fear, but those thoughts influence you only to the extent that you believe them. In a strange way, it is your belief in these ideas that steals your faith. Believing these fearful thoughts knocks you out of the game. Stop believing those things, and you may find you soar toward your dream most effortlessly. You may be asking, how can I stop believing my fearful thoughts? Here's where the real work takes place. Discovering how to get out of your own way is what it is all about. You inherited many of the beliefs you have, or that have you. You can't blame yourself for having them, and you can't blame your parents or teachers because they inherited them too. But you can examine your beliefs and question them. Doubting your ability to succeed may come from a belief that you are a slow learner. You probably picked up that mindset in kindergarten. So it's been haunting you for a long time. You may want to ask, how is that working? What would your life be like if you gave up that belief and started thinking of yourself as creative or dependable or some other powerful way of being? As you examine your beliefs, you can keep the ones that serve you and let go of the ones that limit you. This thought sorting process lies at the heart of my work with all those I mentor. Transforming fear into faith is the core message of books like Think and Grow Rich and Wallace Wattles' masterwork, The Science of Getting Rich. Many of the great success teachers have taken pains to point out that courage and faith are not experienced in the absence of fear, but only in the presence of fear. Courage, it has been said, is found in having fears and moving ahead in spite of them. I wish I could give you a magic pill that would empower you to let go of all your fearful thoughts. There isn't any such thing. Identifying those fearful thoughts that hold you back and choosing to let them go or to move ahead in the face of them takes concentrated effort. Very few people accomplish this without the support of a mentor or a group committed to this empowering and transforming work. For this reason, entrepreneurship has been described as a personal development program with a pay plan. Life beyond your comfort zone. The real roadblocks to success include fear, ego, limiting beliefs, and finally, complacency. Often I see people who seem to have all the right parts to achieve success, yet never get the vehicle out of the garage. They say they are seeking opportunity and they join a particular business program. While they're all around other motivated business owners, they seem enthusiastic and focused. But when these people get back to their own homes, families, and familiar surroundings, they don't take any of the necessary actions to build their businesses. They face the roadblock of complacency. At some level, they are comfortable with the way things are. They may complain about the circumstances, but they are somehow content with the status quo. As a storekeeper said about his dog lying on the nails, I guess it don't hurt that bad. If I had to identify one culprit for the apparent disappearance of the American dream for millions of people, I would blame it on complacency. We've had it so good for so long that people have lost touch with the qualities of vision, determination, desire, and faith possessed by those who built our prosperous way of life. The American dream continues to burn brightly in a minority of individuals around the world. Witness the youthfulness of the Forbes list of the richest people in the world. It includes 50 billionaires under the age of 50. People around the world are becoming millionaires and billionaires more rapidly and at a younger age than ever before. Read the stories of the creators of Google, Facebook, and YouTube. Groupon broke through the $1 billion valuation in less than 18 months. If the American dream has died or been stolen, these folks obviously didn't get the memo. Look at the dramatic innovations and other dreamers have brought about in the past few decades in the fields of technology, entertainment, communication, ecology, and health and fitness. Nevertheless, for many people, the American dream has been co opted, corroded, and corrupted by false promises of security and stability. In my conviction that this magnificent dream of freedom can only be restored and redeemed one person at a time, as individuals wake up to the extraordinary power of personal responsibility, freedom, and choice. Since I achieved my success in business, I had occasion to contend with complacency. Long after I achieved financial success and fulfilled many of my dreams, I grew restless and eager for a new challenge. I discovered an opportunity that excited me, and I found myself hesitating, realizing that my hesitation came from a sense of comfort. I packed a suitcase and moved 1,000 miles from my family and beautiful home in Montana. I rented a small, uncomfortable car and moved into a tiny apartment with my 25-year-old son, Robert Jr., who would be my apprentice in this venture. Shaking off my complacency required getting out of my comfort zone. Perhaps my actions in this instance seem extreme, yet consider how athletes and soldiers train. They are removed from familiar surroundings, required to live in a Spartan quarters, and are subjected to a strict regimen of intense discipline. Even corporations send employees away to receive intensive training, though the food and bedding may be considered improved, achieve concentration and focus, separation from the comforts of camps as it does in other initiatory experiences, such as going away and opening or going away to college. Breaking away from one's familiar environment creates an opening for learning, growth, and personal transformation. None of us wants to let go of our creature comforts and familiar surroundings, but I'm so glad I did what I needed to do to break up my complacency. In these past years, I've enjoyed an unprecedented level of business success and satisfaction. I have begun to watch others implement my methods with technologies and techniques that were previously unavailable. And watching my son develop into an extraordinary business leader in his own right has been one of my great joys. As in the early days after my accident, I found that discomfort heats up desire, keeps one's focused, and most important, opens your mind. As Napoleon Hill wrote, open mindedness is essential to belief. Closed minds do not inspire faith, courage, or belief. That's on page 37. Think and Grow Rich. Questions for discussion, reflection, and action. Number one, where in your life do fear of failure and fear of loss serve to preserve the status quo? Number two, what is the reputation that you try to maintain and with whom? Number three, when your ego takes over, are you more likely to experience overconfidence or lack of confidence? And number four, what are the doubts that you most want to transform? And number five is how might you break up your own complacency and get out of your comfort zone?